All right. This is Upload with Records Music News, and tonight we're looking back at David Lee Roth live at the Steven Tanger Center for the Performing Arts in Greensboro, North Carolina, from May 15th. And yeah, this one is kind of a mixed snapshot of nostalgia, legacy rock, and, well, a reminder that time moves on, even for the biggest names in music. So let's just get into it. David Lee Roth stepped onto the stage as part of his current tour, and right away, the tone of the night was set. This wasn't about chasing some perfect recreation of Van Halen in their prime. It wasn't trying to be 1984 again. It was more like a reflection of that era, filtered through a lifetime of performance, personality, and, honestly, survival in rock and roll. The venue itself, the Steven Tanger Center, holds close to 3,000 people. And while there was definitely an audience present, it wasn't a full house across every section. Some of the upper balcony areas appeared closed off before the show even started, and there were noticeable gaps in the seating. Not empty in a dramatic way, but enough that you kind of noticed it when you looked around. Still, the crowd that did show up, they were into it, fully engaged. And that part matters more than people sometimes admit. Roth, now 71 years old, came out with that familiar swagger. And I mean, it's still there. Maybe not as explosive as the old MTV days, obviously, but the personality, the theatrical movement, the way he owns a stage, that part hasn't disappeared. He spent much of the night moving across the stage with that kind of loose, unpredictable energy he's always been known for. Part showman, part storyteller, part rock frontman who knows exactly what he means to the audience standing in front of him. And the setlist leans straight into the classics. We're talking Panama, Dance the Night Away, Jamie's Cryin, Unchained, and I'm the One. And when those songs hit, you could feel it. The audience reaction wasn't subtle. People were singing along, standing for long stretches of the show, just locked into those moments where the music basically does the talking for everyone. Now, Roth also mixed in some personal storytelling and stripped down moments throughout the night. Little pauses between songs where he would talk to the crowd, sometimes drifting into memories, sometimes just kind of rambling in that classic Roth way that fans either love or just accept as part of the experience. It wasn't a perfectly polished narrative. It was more like fragments of stories stitched between songs that already carry decades of history. And that's kind of the point of a show like this, because this wasn't a tight, modern pop production. This was legacy rock. It was memory-driven. It was personality-driven. Now, vocally, and this is where things get more grounded. Roth did show some strain at times. That's just reality. The early Van Halen catalog is demanding material. It was built on high-energy delivery, wide vocal range, and a kind of youthful edge that, well, nobody in their 70s is going to replicate the same way. So yeah, there were moments where the vocals leaned on backing support. The band stepped in at times to reinforce sections, and that actually helped keep the structure of the songs strong. It wasn't distracting, but it was noticeable if you were listening closely. But here's the thing. Most of the audience didn't seem focused on that. They weren't there for perfection. They were there for connection. And that connection was very much alive in the room. The band itself was tight throughout the night. Really solid. Clean transitions, well-rehearsed arrangements. Nothing overly flashy, but very professional. The kind of backing group that knows exactly what job they're there to do, which is to support the frontman and keep those classic songs feeling recognizable and powerful. And the Tanger Center acoustics actually helped more than you might expect. The sound mix stayed pretty balanced through most of the performance. Vocals sat where they needed to sit, guitars came through with clarity, wallets clang, and the drums had enough presence without overpowering everything else. So, from a pure sound standpoint, it worked. Not perfect, but solid. Controlled, cohesive. And again, this wasn't really about perfection anyway. There's something interesting about watching an artist like David Lee Roth at this stage of his career. Because you're not just watching a concert. You're watching decades of music history being reinterpreted in real time by one of the people who helped create it. Sometimes it feels like he's leaning into the theatrical side more than anything else. The gestures, the movement, the crowd engagement, that's still very much the center of what he does. And honestly, that's probably the smartest way to approach it at this point. The songs themselves, They carry the weight. Panama doesn't need explanation. Unchained doesn't need build-up. Those songs hit the room and people respond instantly. And they did. Even in a venue that wasn't completely full, the energy inside the theater stayed consistent. Fans were standing, singing, reacting, and just kind of living in those moments as they came. There's also something worth noting about the overall structure of the night. It wasn't trying to overextend itself. It didn't feel like a 3-hour marathon or anything like that. It was focused, direct, and built around recognition and familiarity. Almost like a reminder of what this music still means to people. And yeah, there's a bit of nostalgia weighing over everything. You can't really separate that from a Van Halen-related performance in 2026. It's just part of the experience now. But Roth didn't seem to be fighting that. If anything, he leaned into it. The stories, the pacing, the way he framed the songs, it all pointed back toward memory, toward legacy, toward the idea that these moments still matter, even if they belong to another time. So, by the end of the night, what you were left with wasn't necessarily a flawless vocal showcase or a technically perfect recreation of Van Halen's peak years. It was something more, human than that. A veteran performer revisiting the music that defined him, a crowd reconnecting with songs that defined an era, and a shared understanding in the room that this wasn't about going backward, it was about remembering what was built. So yeah, David Lee Roth in Greensboro at the Steven Tanger Center, it was nostalgia-heavy, performance-driven, sometimes imperfect, but still carried by the strength of the material and the legacy behind it. And in the end, that's what the audience came for. This is Upload Records Music News. Signing off.